I have a theory.
Go for it.
My theory is that, one, this is just vetting. This is a trial balloon.
Yeah.
And this is actually, I think, an attempt to soften up the GOP. Because you float a trial balloon, you let all of the news agencies through back channels know that this actually is going on. And then you have the press go out, because they inevitably will, asking Republican senators, what do you think of this? And if they are going to do one of two things, they're going to say, it doesn't matter, we're going to let the next president do it, and we're going to say no. So they look terrible. They're just obstructionists. Or in the alternative, some of them who are up, for re-election may say, if the president goes with someone who's, marginally acceptable, we really should give them a hearing and an up or down vote, and boom, you've just softened up that senator. So when you actually nominate somebody else, you point back to that tape saying, well, you would give that person one, why not this person? Why have you turned obstructionist? And they could be softening them up to try to get them warmed to the idea of having the hearings, perhaps.
And you may be onto something, because you have Republicans like Susan Collins coming out saying, we may well be sent a nominee who is deserving of thorough vetting and consideration. Let it be noted that apparently they think the only nominee that is, in her words, deserving of a thorough vetting and consideration is a Republican. But I think that lends credence to your theory there.
It's just kind of the pregame.
Yeah. I don't know.
The scrimmage.
I don't know if this is, this is actually somebody he would like to pick. I don't think it's really in line with the justices he has already nominated. But I think it could be a little, hey, look at how ridiculous Republicans are. And I do not trust them not to call a bluff here and say, fine, put him through. We'll approve him. And then it gives them the upper hand in the negotiation once again.
Sure. Yeah. I understand there's some risk. You're playing a little bit of political chicken here, if that's the case.
If that's the case, if this is even a serious consideration.
Because vetting someone is not nominating them.
As of, according to Governor Sandoval's people, he has not been contacted about vetting.
Interesting.
However, Harry Reid has been said to be pushing this a little bit. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
Very
these are all through The Guardian and through, this is the Washington Post. So take that
Writers reported,
as you will.
In fact, we said it on air yesterday.
Yeah.
Because it was just breaking towards the end of the show.
I think it's very emblematic of the situation that we find ourselves in the Democratic primary.
Sure. And you said in the first segment something about, this isn't progressive.
Right.
And a lot of has been made of who's a progressive and who's not a progressive. And I've got to be honest with you, that entire conversation made me really, really uncomfortable.
Yeah, I agree.
Because no one should be an arbiter of who a progressive is and who a progressive isn't. I don't think anyone is trying to be. Let's just put that aside right there. A while back, Tom floated the idea of what a journalist is and what a journalist isn't. And he floated the theory that, and this had to do with whether or not a journalist could essentially not speak in criminal hearings.
Yeah, it was whether or not people who posted on social media were considered a journalist.
Right.
Yeah.
And essentially we had people like Feinstein saying you're only a journalist if you get paid to work at the Washington Post, essentially. And Tom's theory was, and I really, really like this idea, is that we don't define what a journalism, we define what acts of journalism are. And I thought it might be a good idea, perhaps in our conversations, when we're talking about progressivism, to not say you're a progressive and you're not a progressive, and you're not a progressive because of blank, because you did this. I really think that's unfair. I think it's really important, though, to point out acts that are progressive and acts that are not as progressive, for the purpose of saying that was what you did there was really progressive, and we're going to encourage that more. And where someone has done something that's not so progressive, say, as someone who pushes more progressive, who pushes more liberal, I don't find that to be a progressive position. Would you please rethink that? Or, here's where we think you're wrong. Instead of putting out a label, you're progressive, you're not a progressive, it's very divisive. So I would say that the nomination of Brian Sandoval would not be a progressive act. No. In my opinion. And I would encourage that to not happen.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way of looking at it. It may be a way to change the conversation.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's beneficial to sit and try and again, as I tried to say yesterday, I'm not sure how well I succeeded, I think it puts us in Frank Luntz's sandbox.
Sure
when
does.
we are sitting here worrying about labels, and we are considering whether to use one word or another word, or if this word fits to that. I think we've already missed the point.
Right.
Let's look
at someone's policies.
Yeah.
And let's look at their actions.
Right.
And we can decide for ourselves if you want to use a shorthand term for it, that's fine. But I'm not going to either say someone is not a progressive or someone is a progressive based on one thing that they said 20 years ago.
Right.
Or one action they took. I think that our president currently has made so many, innumerable progressive acts.
And when he does, that's when the American people really, really, really rally behind him, including Republicans. Notice how many the Republican states are the biggest problem with the Obamacare and the Medicaid expansion.
Yes.
But there's also a lot of Republicans, look at Kentucky, that quickly expanded Medicaid, took Obama's progressive idea.
Right.
They might have tried to give it some other label, but they saw a good idea. They knew it was good for the people. They knew it was good policy. They knew it was popular, and they backed it.
Sure.
And I want to see more of that.
And also, when you put those labels on, it immediately can shut the door of 30 to 40% of the country who say, I don't like progressives. They're crazy liberals.
Well, but when you don't pursue the progressive acts, or when you say that they are
but if you can separate,
naive and ridiculous, you're not going to get the support.
Bernie's policy, when you separate away from the term democratic socialism, every one of the policies are incredibly popular.
Right.
The label, not so much. So.
Yep. Well, lots to consider there.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.